Councilman Broadcasting.
Good evening. We're here at the November 10th, 2020 council meeting. Still in COVID, and welcome all. Margot, would you like to take it away?
I certainly would. I, Margot G. Kay, the town clerk of the town of Morristown, do hereby state that it is 7:32 p.m. on Tuesday, November 10th, 2020, and that this meeting is being held remotely via webinar. Both adequate and electronic notice of this meeting were provided according to law by written notice to the Morristown Daily Record, the official newspaper of the town of Morristown, and to the Newark Star Ledger, both more than 48 hours ago. Notice was also posted on the hall and on the town website and filed with the office of the town clerk of the town of Morristown. I do further state that I shall enter into the minutes of this meeting a statement that such notice was furnished, particularly described by me in this public announcement. Roll call. Councilwoman Cotton.
Here.
Councilman Elms.
Present.
Councilman Foster.
Here.
Councilman Iannacone.
Here.
Councilman Mayer.
Here.
Councilman Silva.
Present.
And Council President Armington.
Here.
Council President, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we will sit for a moment of silence. And sit for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance, to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, please be aware that public comment during the public portions of this meeting will be moderated through the Zoom app. At the appropriate times, members of the public wishing to speak should indicate so by raising his or her hand in the app. You will find the raise your hand icon at the bottom left side of your screen. You may also raise your hand by pressing *9 on your telephone. When it is your turn, the moderator will send a signal through the app and ask that you unmute yourself so that you may be heard. Please be advised that any comments received via email will be read at the conclusion of public hearing. There's one item on the consent agenda, and that's the September 8th, 2020 minutes of the ABC, local ABC board. Unless a member of council would like to discuss it, I would ask for a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I would make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Councilwoman Cotton.
Yes.
Councilman Elms.
Yes.
Councilman Foster.
Yes.
Councilman Iannacone.
Yes.
Councilman Mayer.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Motion carries. At this time, I will open up the floor for a public hearing on any matter. Again, please raise your hand in the Zoom app to indicate that you would like to speak. If you have joined the meeting via telephone, kindly press 9. You state your name and address, and please limit your time to 5 minutes or less. Be advised that any derogatory comments targeting members of council and or administration may be ruled out of order.
Council members, I don't see any hands raised for public comment. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one hand raised now. Peter Sudol, if you'll please unmute yourself and then state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure, thank you. It's Peter Sudol. I'm Catherine Lane in Morristown. Just keep this short and simple. I know, I'm assuming most of you know why I'm here and talking. So today was a sad day. I had my court date and I have till Monday to rehome our chickens, which is very upsetting to my wife and I. But I just wanted to just stay in contact and let you know that I'm still working on this. We're working on organizing and organizing effectively and getting more people on board with this. And I really just, I continue to ask that just to give me some information as to why you're so opposed to this. I know Mr. Elm spoke up and said he, had an open mind about this. And I, again, will continue to do any of the legwork you need me to do as far as gathering information and data and things like that to help you understand this a little bit better and really understand that there really aren't going to be the problems that you think they're going to be. And somebody sent this to me today and I just wanted to share it. It was actually a flyer that the government would send out. Now, this is going back 100 years. It says, Uncle Sam expects you to raise hens and raise chickens. 2 hens in the backyard for each person in the house will keep a family in fresh eggs. Even the smallest backyard has room for a flock large enough to supply the house with eggs. The cost of maintaining such a flock is small. Table and kitchen waste to provide much of the feed for the hens. They require little attention and only a few minutes a day. An interested child, only old enough to take a little responsibility, can care for a few fowls as well as a grown person. Every yard in the United States should contribute its share to a bumper crop of poultry eggs in 1918. In times of peace, a profitable recreation. In times of war, patriotic duty. And so this is, the government literally was telling people, anybody that could, you don't need space, you don't need money to do it, and everybody should do it so they can take care of their family. And I don't think I need to remind anybody about how stressful this year has been for everybody. And I work in a commercial audiovisual industry where I'm literally watching my industry crumble slowly because people just are not returning to an office space to work. And so we're all just looking for a little bit of the protection that you're extending to the business owners, to the restaurants, and just something that we can enjoy together as a neighborhood. And that's all I wanted to say. And I just, again, I just asked that just give me a little bit of information as to why you're opposed to this at the moment. So hopefully we can continue to have a conversation about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sudol.
Councilman, I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay, we will close the public hearing and open up council responses to public hearing comments.
Stefan, can I speak first?
Sure.
First, I would just like to publicly apologize to my fellow council members. At the last council meeting, Mr. Peter Sudol, who just called in, falsely accused this board of ignoring him, and that is blatantly not true. Mr. Sudol knows that. I should have spoken up 2 weeks ago at the meeting. I apologize for not refuting his statement. Just to remind everybody, Mr. Griffo called into the August meeting of 16 Catherine Lane. He had already received a response from Mr. Armington in writing and verbally. He was not accepting of that. The next meeting, I responded to Mr. Sudol, who called in of 16 Catherine Lane. He was not accepting of my response, and I wrote in and verbally. At this time, the answer has been given, and I think it's time that we moved on. Thank you, Mr. Sudol, for calling in.
I'll just pipe in since I did have a few conversations with Mr. Sudol, and I took the effort to reach out to my constituents in the third ward, the majority of whom were sympathetic, but they, for one reason or another, didn't want chickens in their neighbors' yards. So, Mr. Sudol, if you wish to advance your activism, I think the direction that would probably be the best for your endeavors is to educate the public about the benefits of chickens and that they do not pose a public nuisance, because currently, at least in the third ward, the residents that I spoke to believe that they do and don't want that risk that would be promoted by council action. So I think that closes the issue on that. Unless there's any other comment by council, we will move on to the report of the mayor and town officials.
Okay, good evening, Council President and Council. We'll start with October 28th. We had a second Burnham Park Master Plan Committee meeting, community meeting. It was well attended, a lot of feedback given by citizens in different groups. So we'll be continuing moving forward with putting our master plan together with the public for Burnham Park. Saturday, I want to thank all the people and the volunteers that came out for the Thanksgiving food drive to benefit the Interfaith Food Pantry. They really were very successful from 9 to 12 getting food, and I think probably over 3,000 pounds. It was a really great turnout for a Saturday in the middle of a pandemic. I want to thank all the people that donated food and came out on that day. It was well run, social distancing, masks. It was very good. Saturday, well, I don't want to skip Election Day. Election Day obviously was Tuesday. We are still waiting on some national results. We are waiting on our county results. They should be in. They're close to getting to the point where they're counting provisionals. You can look up your county results at Morris County Election Results. You can Google that website and get your as up to dates as they continue to update each day. Saturday, November 7th, the Market Street Mission did its 20th annual coat giveaway. I want to thank Councilwoman Sandy Mayer for coming and recognizing the good work that the mission does. It was a great turnout, amazing coat drive. They had 2,500 coats. They had all kinds of stuff, hats, gloves, you name it, they had it. A lot of people came out. I talked to a lot of people that were in line waiting with families and kids, and it's just a great turnout. And I want to thank the Market Street Mission for their care of the community, especially with the winter coming down on us. And told them if they didn't run out of their coats, we'd be happy to host it again. I have not heard from the coordinator. Maybe my office did. I'll check with them probably sometime early next week. Everybody to mark your calendars. Today is the 10th. Tomorrow is the 11th. Town Hall will be closed in observance of Veterans Day. So I want to thank all our veterans, as I know the council does and the administration, for their service to our country here and abroad. Thank you. You're not forgotten, and always we salute the veterans. On Friday, November 13th, those who can make it at 10:30 a.m., there'll be an M Station groundbreaking ceremony. That's this Friday at the 13th. And on Thursday, the 26th, and Friday, the 27th, Town Hall will be closed in observance of Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you, Council President. That is my report for this evening.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Glad to see you're healthy. And Council Liaison reports.
Stefan, Morristown Partnership. Morristown Partnership, the partnership commercial rent relief grant program was succeedingly very successful. 62 businesses applied and all were funded with up to 3 months rent not to exceed $20,000. Again, I think the mayor's talked about this program in the past. Two very generous private donors and two foundations made the total grant of $679,000 possible. Great program. And again, I commend Jen and the rest of the partnership in their hard work to administer that grant and the distribution of the funds. Some sad news is that due to COVID, the green will be decorated, but the trustees of the Morristown Green have announced that there's going to be no events on the green this Christmas season, including, sadly, visits to Santa. However, let's all take some joy in the fact that the green will be decorated and shed some light on our holiday season. The Morristown Partnership is exploring the possible relief on the restriction on beer, wine, and cider licenses for establishments that do not have liquor licenses. They have not formulated an opinion, and if they do and when they do, they'll communicate directly with the state on the issue. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you, Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry. The Morristown Parking Authority just wanted to make members of the public aware that they approved the holiday bagging of the meters from December 11th to December 27th.
Okay. Thank you, Toshiba.
No problem.
I have a report from the Shade Tree Commission, but I also have a letter from the Friends of Flitz Pond that they asked me to read. So I'll read the Shade Tree Commission report first. It says, the Shade Tree Commission has finished their analysis of the park's forested areas The manicured areas of the parks are being well taken care of by our DPW. However, the trees and forested areas are in danger. Some of this can be remediated by our tree crew, but keep in mind that a lot of these invasive species have been growing for more than 50 years in our parks. The forested areas of our parks are being overrun and being destroyed by the invasive species and vines. We are looking to create small groups of residents to work with the Shade Tree Commission and the town within our forested areas to remove and eradicate invasive vines and shrubs like we are doing in Foots Pond Wood. The Foots Pond Strike Team has been successful in eradicating many invasive vines, shrubs, therefore saving our trees and unearthing native trees that were being smothered by invasives, thus allowing native species to thrive. The work has turned Foots Pond Wood into a haven for native flowers, trees, and shrubs, which has brought in butterflies and birds not seen before. We need the help of our residents to save the forested areas of Morristown, which are vital to our urban canopy, which creates healthy air and filters water into our waterways and drinking water. And she said, we're looking forward to the council to help us find passionate people willing to be trained and work with the Shade Tree Commission. Now from Foots Pond, it says, they asked me that I could read this. Friends of Foots Pond Wood is in awe of the restoration of the pond. The hydro raking is a wonderful success. The turtles are swimming freely. The egret is figuring out his new territory, and the great blue heron has been seen fishing too, along with the kingfishers and hawks. The men who ran the heavy hydro raking equipment were super efficient and thorough and careful, and such nice people. Anthony DeVizio certainly ran the project like the expert engineer he is. We are grateful to the many who we know worked long and hard to make this happen. Maureen Denman and the MEC, Jillian Barrick, Anthony DeVizio, DPW, Town Council, and Mayor Doherty. You all have a cheering public sending thanks. The town investment in Foots Pond Wood benefits so many people and preserves the habitat for all the critters. It is a lively, well-visited park now. People of all ages and abilities are there from early morning till dusk, every day, every season. A million thanks. And that's from Susan Landau on behalf of the Friends of Foots Pond Wood.
Good job.
It's them.
I know. That's awesome. I watched the whole thing happen. It was great.
Hey, Stefan, I just got one correction. Thank God for texting. Jen just corrected a statement I made. They are looking at alternatives for visiting Santa. So let's stay tuned.
All right. Sounds good. If there are no more council liaison reports, we'll move on to regular business. There is one item for introduction, I believe. Margot, you are muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Ordinance number O-38-2020, an ordinance amending and supplementing the code of the town of Morristown, Chapter 7, Traffic, Section 40.2, handicap parking on streets for private residences to add a dedicated handicap parking space for a resident of 51 Lake Road.
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Just a question. Just a comment. So I'm familiar with this applicant. The applicant is actually on Jerome Street, which is the perpendicular road. And the question for the administration, I think I brought it up a month or so ago. The road for the first 75 feet or so is narrow, about 24 feet wide. It's two-way with parking on both sides, and then it widens out to the full 32-foot length. I know that there's concern about parking. There's also concern about maintaining traffic flow. So I just sort of bring it to the administration's ear about whether or not they should look into whether or not parking should be restricted for the for the narrow section. I know it is narrow. It is restricted on the one side for the first 50 feet, which is standard by town code. There is no sign on the other side of the street, so I'm not quite sure what the plan is. So.
Councilman, just to get clarity, which section are you talking about?
The Jerome Street, the first from Lake Road until basically past the first house. The road is narrow. It's 24 feet wide, and then it widens out to 32 feet. and the handicap spot proposed is on the narrow section, but there's also a parking allowed on the other side of the street, and with 2 cars and a 24-foot roadway. It's a dead end street, so there shouldn't be much two-way traffic on there, but it is a narrow street section of the street anyway. I just bring that to your attention to take a look if you have the chance.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Call the question, please, Margot.
On the introduction of ordinance O-38-2020, Councilwoman Cotton,
Yes.
Councilman Elms,
Yes.
Councilman Foster,
Yes.
Councilman Iannacone,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mayer,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Ordinance 38-2020 has been introduced properly by title and will be considered further after a public hearing on December 1st. Excuse me. We have 4 ordinances on the agenda for public hearing and adoption. Ordinance number O-34-2020, an ordinance amending ordinance O-36-2019, providing for certain capital improvements at the Morristown Municipal Airport by the town of Morristown in the county of Morris, state of New Jersey, and appropriating $8,293,709 therefore to finance a part of the cost thereof. Motion to
I'll make a motion to adopt O-34-2020. I would like to have some discussion about it since it seems like the rest of the agenda is primarily committed to most of the airport elements. So, a second.
I'll second.
So I've read the 1980 lease agreement, or at least most of it. I've read supplemental memos provided by the law department from the airport's attorneys to our attorneys. Notable one on October 9th, 2020, of Kaplan, Kirshen, Rockwell. Jillian, can you tell us how much the airport gives the town rent on an annual basis?
It's $221,000 a year.
Okay, because I'd heard 221. I'd also heard 100,000, and I wasn't. I wanted to make sure that was consistent with the airport's assertion on that use. And my understanding from as explained in the October 19th memo from the airport's attorneys, those funds can only be used in support of airport expenditures. You know, is that's what their memo suggested. I think we've used it for all of the police and fire support that we've had to do over the last, at least, presidential support and all the calls. So I think
Council President, let me just jump in. That is correct that the payments that we receive as rent do go to cover the services that the town does provide to the airport.
And that is a requirement by federal law. So we can't add it to the general fund if we didn't provide those services. Is that your understanding, Mr. Pawar?
That's correct. We do have to provide services that are that come to the amount of rent that the town gets.
Okay. And there has been, Mr. Iannacone has taken a stand against this over the last year or so. I assume I didn't find it, but I assume that there is language in the lease agreement from 2008, which requires the town council or the town to support grant agreements and essentially support the airport's operating budget as required, via the town. Is that your understanding?
Well, I don't want to get too into the details of the legal challenges, et cetera, in public session, but I can tell you that as as the owner and the landlord, we have certain obligations, and we have agreed to support the operator of the airport when it comes to operating and applying for grants and funds from the federal government. And the FAA has strict regulations and guidelines on what type of grants there are, the bids that go out. So there are much stricter regulations that the FAA uses. So yes, to boil it down, we do have an obligation under the lease to support the DM's operation of the airport.
And in response to Mr. Yannicon's, we'll call them objections over the last year about this, has the town brought on any outside counsel with specific expertise in airport leases that we can use to address the concerns about the lease and potential concerns in the future?
Council President, I would love to have this discussion in closed session.
Stefan?
Or offline.
Stefan, can I make a suggestion? You know, actually, the mayor at the last meeting, we were talking a little bit, and I think it's a good opportunity to form a subcommittee to work with administration to take a look at the situation. I think it's I'm glad that we're having this discussion. I think if we put together three of us to meet with Vij, to meet with the mayor, see what possibly are the alternatives, review the documents together, and if there's some opportunity or some clarification necessary, seek the proper advice.
Okay, I would be supportive of that. I guess I would serve on that with Mr. Yannicon. Is there anyone else who would like to serve on that subcommittee?
I'm interested.
Ms. Realms, okay.
Yep.
Sorry, Sandy, he hit the button first.
Okay.
All right, so via that, we will form a subcommittee that will work with the law department and the administration to expand our investigations of the airport issue. And with that, we will, if there are any other questions on this ordinance 034-2020. All right, Margot, please call the question.
On the adoption of ordinance I'm sorry, at this time, we need to open up a public hearing.
Yes.
If there are any members of the public who wish to comment on ordinance 0-34-2020, please raise your hand and notify the moderator that you'd like to speak.
Councilman, I don't see any hands raised.
We will close the public hearing then.
On the adoption of ordinance 0-34-2020, Councilwoman Cotton,
Yes.
Councilman Elms,
Yes.
Councilman Foster,
Yes.
Councilman Iannicone,
No.
Councilman Mayer,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Ordinance 34-2020 is adopted. Ordinance 0-35-2020, an ordinance providing for certain capital improvements at the Morristown Municipal Airport by the town of Morristown and the county of Morris, state of New Jersey, and appropriating $10,033,162 therefore to finance part of the cost thereof.
I'll make a motion to adopt 0-35-2020.
I'll second.
Additional comments? I will open up the public hearing for members of the public who wish to speak on ordinance 0-35-2020.
Councilman, I don't see any hands raised for this public hearing.
Close the public hearing.
On the adoption of ordinance 0-35-2020, Councilwoman Cotton,
Yes.
Councilman Elms,
Yes.
Councilman Foster,
Yes.
Councilman Iannicone,
No.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Ordinance 35-2020 is adopted. Ordinance number O-36-2020, an ordinance providing for certain capital improvements at the Morristown Municipal Airport by the town of Morristown and the county of Morris, state of New Jersey, and appropriating $190,151 therefore to finance part of the cost thereof.
I'll make a motion to adopt O-36-2020.
I'll second.
At this time, I would open up the public hearing for anyone in the public who wishes to speak on ordinance O-36-2020.
Councilman, there's one hand raised. Carrie Lloyd.
Mr.
Carrie,
Lloyd?
if you would unmute yourself and state your name and address to the record, please.
Hi, Kerry Lloyd, 48 Georgian Road in Morristown. Just a quick statement on all three of these capital expenditures. I'm surprised that the discussion of kind of this operation was pretty much shut down for the public to hear about. I'm sure there's reasons that certain things need to be behind closed doors in the discussions, but spending of $18 million seems to be something the public should know a little bit more about before it all gets adopted. Thanks.
Council President,
Yes.
just want the public.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, if there's no other public comments, I'll close the public comment period.
I don't see any other hands raised, Councilman.
Mayor, go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you, Council President. Just want the public to be assured that we're not spending $18 million out of town coffers to the airport. These are grants by the FAA. So I don't want the public to be misled that this is money that we're giving them. That's it.
Thank you, Mayor. That was my comment as well.
Council President, I also want to let the council members know that Darren Large, the Director of Operations from the airport, is in the audience. If there are any questions, he can answer them.
Can you explain a little bit about what is the $18 million is going for and what kind of improvements there are quickly to us for us?
Sure. All right, Darren, if you can unmute yourself.
Hi, am I on?
You are.
Good evening, everybody. These projects are associated with a runway rehab that has been in the planning processes for approximately the last 10 years. The runway and associated safety areas with the main runway at the airport, runway 523, are in a non-standard condition. They were designed originally in 1940, and what we're trying to do is bring them into a standard condition, standardize the safety areas, deal with drainage issues that we have in the safety areas, which are dealt with overruns potentially of aircraft that may deviate from the runway. Eventually, we're going to be redoing the asphalt on the main part of the runway, and we're going to be doing the lighting. And this is going to be going on, I believe we have it phased out over the course of the next 10 years. So these are all separate phases of the project. The $8 million is associated with the phase that we've recently completed. We had substantial completion of phase A last week. The $10 million is tied to CARES funding from the federal government. It's phase B of this project, the second phase of the project. That phase is going to be starting in probably July of 2021. So these are all phased projects that are dealing with the rehab of the runway. The last time runway 523 was rehabbed was in 1996, and that was an overlay that was done on the runway. So just like you would do repairs on a highway, this is what we're doing. We're just repairing the infrastructure that's out there.
Mr. Large, I assume this is the project that had basically the subject of the 2015 environmental impact statement that the Federal Aviation Administration granted a record of decision on. Is that
correct? This is tied to that, and this is also tied to the master plan that was done. I think it was executed by the town back in 2010. So this is a project, like I said, that we've been planning for over the last 10 years. And it's ultimately something that has to be done to bring this runway within 2020 standards for safety of operations.
Do you anticipate increased usage from people who haven't been using it before now that it's going to be greatly improved and increasing air traffic around our area?
No, and I can tell you that right now we're hovering at basically 50% of our operations due to the COVID pandemic. So we are suffering just like everybody else is, but these projects are not going to drive more traffic to the airport. It's basically like overlaying Route 287 or Route 80 and repairing the pullover lanes on the side of the highway. That's all we're doing. We're just upgrading infrastructure there, not to attract more traffic, but to standardize what we have in place already.
And for the council's benefit, I have reviewed the environmental impact statement for that full aggregate project, and to Mr. Large's credit, that is what the environmental impact statement states. Basically, it talks about the under the purpose and need that is not intended to increase operations, and that they go through the whole process of documenting air quality, noise, and other impacts, which were determined to be minimal and resulted in the Federal Aviation Administration's determination that there's no adverse impact of the project.
And one of the things I just want to point out is, not unlike what has been going on at the town over the last years with the construction stuff, we're just at the point in the cycle where these things need to be replaced. Our Mauser system, which is our approach lighting system, was put in the 70s when the runway was extended. It's basically, in really need of replacement at this point to bring it to standard. So, and unfortunately, these projects are in our environment are not necessarily cheap. We were lucky this year that we did compete for CARES funding through the FAA. So we got 100% money from the federal government to fund this Phase B portion of the project. But we're just in a cycle right now where these construction projects need to take place. And it's a cyclical thing where every, 10 or 20 years, we've got to do these projects to keep the infrastructure solid.
But also, Stefan, let me be clear, the reason for my note has, I understand that improvements need to be made, safety has to be maintained, but this is one of the few points of leverage we might have in terms of this lease.
Yes, understood.
For the benefit of us who have not seen the master plan, can we get to see that? And are there future expansions planned that you know of? Master plan.
I believe the master plan should be at the clerk's office. I can get an electronic copy for you. That's not a problem. All the projects, they're not really expansions. All the projects that would be identified over the course of the next 20 years were identified on the master plan itself. I think there's a couple ramp projects and hangar projects, but whether those come to fruition or not, it depends, because you don't necessarily build everything that's on a master plan. You put all the things that you'd like to see on the master plan, but you may not get everything that you'd like to see in that master plan, depending upon, conditions like COVID and stuff like that come out over the course of a 20-year period.
Thank you.
Any other comments for Mr. questions for Mr. Large? I forgot now, Margot. Do we open up the public session, or do we close the public session?
We already closed the public hearing. If you're ready, I'll call the question.
Call the question.
On the adoption of ordinance 036-2020, Councilwoman Cotton.
Yes.
Councilman Elms.
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster.
Yes.
Councilman Iannaccone.
No.
Councilwoman Mayer.
Yes.
Councilman Silva.
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Ordinance 26-2020 is adopted. Ordinance number 0-37-2020, an ordinance amending and supplementing the code of the town of Morristown, Chapter 7, Traffic, Section 7-40.2, handicap parking on streets for private residences, to amend the placard number assigned to a dedicated parking space for a resident of 9 Cleveland Street.
I'll make a motion to adopt 037-2020.
I'll second.
At this time, I'll open up the floor to the public for anyone who wishes to comment on ordinance O-37-2020.
Councilman, I don't see any hands raised for this public hearing.
Close the public hearing.
Any comments or questions from council? On the adoption of O-37-2020, Councilwoman Cotton,
Yes.
Councilman Elms,
Yes.
Councilman Foster,
Yes.
Councilman Iannicone,
No. Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Ordinance O-37-2020 is adopted. There are 8 resolutions for adoption on the agenda. Are there any that members of council would like to pull for separate consideration?
I would suggest we pull 167 through 171.
Stefan, if it makes it easier for the council, you can take those in mass. I'll be voting no on all of them.
Great.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 167 through 171.
I'll second.
Okay. Councilwoman Cotton,
Yes.
Councilman Elms,
Yes.
Councilman Foster,
Yes.
Councilman Iannicone,
No.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Council President Armington.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And then I'd like to make a motion to adopt R172 through R174 in mass.
I'll second.
Councilwoman Cotton,
Yes.
Councilman Elms,
Yes.
Councilman Foster,
Yes.
Councilman Iannicone,
Yes.
Councilman Mayor,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
and Council President Armington. Council President Armington.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
So old business, that concludes the regular business. We move on to old business. Rent leveling board. I understand that the what is the status of the rent leveling board? It hasn't heard it. It hasn't met in. When was the last time it met?
I wouldn't know the exact date, but I would hazard it's been a couple of years.
People have applied to be on the board. Is there a status on that?
The board was, there was a subcommittee appointed back in 2019 by Councilman Foster. They were going to look at, I guess, revamping the charter of the rent leveling board. They were taking a look at the current statute. Since then, we have received applications, but we have not acted on them.
Toshiba, would it be possible for you to at least give a presentation or an update either now or at the next council meeting on where the committee's efforts went to?
Yeah, give me till next council meeting, please.
When people apply for these boards, like this rent leveling board, why weren't they acted on? Do we get every seat filled at one time, or how does it work?
Well, I think I think that the most of the seats are filled, though, because the board hasn't met in at least a couple of years.
Stefan, can I give some clarification on
Yes,
this?
thank you.
Okay. Actually, there was Toshiba did put a group together with us, and Toshiba and I did some work on this. We're looking at the possibility of expanding the role of the Rent Leveling Commission. After consultations with both VEAG and administration, we determined that some of the goals that we were trying to achieve actually did have vehicles already within administration to address those concerns of tenants. And if people remember, that was also at the time that this council and this administration passed several ordinances that actually put some further protections in place for tenants in Morristown. During that period of time, there was no interruption as to the membership. I don't know if vacancies developed after that time, but at that time, there was no vacancies in membership. I think the reason why the question comes up is because when you look at the rent leveling ordinance in town, it only needs to be called when there's an appeal made by a tenant of an administrative decision on the rent control ordinance itself. An issue has not come up, and I think that's the reason why you're seeing that there was no meetings.
Got it. Okay. So I believe there is one position open, or there will be one position open, or the term of a commissioner is expiring at the end of the year. Have you reached out to him to see if he's?
I have received confirmation that yes, he would like to be reappointed. But there have been a number of terms expiring, and so we do have quite a few vacancies.
Okay, if you can reach out to the people who have the terms that have expired and see if they're willing to reserve, and then provide the status of those along with the applicants that have reached out to the town over the last year to request to be on the board, then we can revisit it. I assume the position, the Billy Burns position is up at the end of the year, or?
That's correct. It expires 12/31.
Okay, so then that would be, we would make a decision then on the in the beginning of the year as to that position, and advise us if any, when basically if there are any current openings, and just send it all out as in a sort of mass email and let us know.
Absolutely, will do.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is that standard practice that the town reaches out to members whose term are expiring rather than them resubmit an application or contact the town to say, I'm interested a few months before their term expires? What's the standard practice?
To be honest with you, that is a courtesy that I.
Right. Sometimes people ask, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we ask if they are in the know. They reach out and say, I want to remain in, or I want to continue serving. I don't believe there's any standard practice. It's subject to the council at that time. So.
And how far in advance would somebody on a board need to reach out to the council if it's a council appointment to be appointed if they already have the position? Like 4 weeks, 2 meetings, 2 months? Like, what's the guideline?
I don't think there's a guideline. I think that, well, and because sometimes if the member of the public has been serving diligently and has met all of its ongoing educational requirements, and we feel that the service is good, and then a lot of times the council in the past has offered to reinstate the person. In other conditions, other boards, some members have been on for 20, 30 years, and sometimes council feels it's time for a change, but it's really up to the. There's no standard practice, just varying trends. So if the council believes that there should be a change, I would encourage through internal discussions, individually through the council to come up with some consensus, and then we can talk about it in public once we have some ideas. So that's only my thought. If you want to hash it out in the public view, that's also your prerogative.
If I could add that the 30-day advertising requirement is indeed required regardless of whether or not the incumbent wishes to continue to serve or not, so that we're always accepting new applications at the expiration of every term, regardless.
And I'd just like to thank Councilman Iacone for that excellent recap. I was sitting here wrecking my brain trying to, recall, how we kind of concluded that, because I know it was some time ago. But thank you for your great memory and for, informing us, where we were with that rent leveling board. Appreciate you.
Anytime.
All right, so we'll get information from Margot on that. I believe they're also, I guess that's new business. So we'll jump into that later. If that's it on the rent leveling board, we'll move on to new business. As everyone knows, the voters of New Jersey passed the public question to allow for recreational marijuana in the state of New Jersey. And so I felt it was appropriate to discuss zoning for marijuana sales. As you may recall, back last fall, we set up a council committee to discuss zoning for medical marijuana sales. And we had several good meetings internally and along with the administration, and came up with some promising ideas. And that was before the governor and the Senate were close to or at least gave us the idea that it was going to be on the ballot. So now that it is on the ballot, I think it's appropriate for the town to decide whether or not we will allow zoning for recreational marijuana or not, and under what circumstances. To give the council and the public an idea of where we had gone with medical marijuana. We had tentatively agreed on a licensing mechanism whereby a maximum of 2 licenses would be allowed townwide, with relatively stringent requirements for the licensing, and zoning would essentially be allowed in non-residential zones, similar to alcohol sales, 1,000 feet from schools, 200 feet from parks and religious institutions, and so that's more or less where we had left it. Now that it's recreational, there have been some discussions about concern about increased nuisances of recreational marijuana, and how to counter that. So what is the will of the council, and where do we want to take this?
Council President,
yes, sir.
Can I interrupt you for a second? I'd like to hear from the town attorney on the actual legality of marijuana and what the guidelines are from the AG on going forward. Has this been settled?
Mr. Puar, thank you.
Sure. It's not been settled. Actually, we have received recently guidelines or directives from the AG's office that says that marijuana is still illegal. It's still a banned substance under the federal laws. As far as the ballot question is concerned, it did pass, but the legislature still has to come up with regulations and rules on how it's going to implement that program. So we're still at least a year away from legal recreational marijuana dispensary locations. But
Right,
we had talked about that. Go ahead, Mayor. That's it as far as.
Okay, that's the reason why, Council President, I wanted the attorney to jump in, because I think there's a lot still to go before we start having those kind of discussions where we're legally going to put it.
Okay.
No, Stefan, just to comment on this. I will say, when we originally started this subcommittee, the discussion was doing something in anticipation to get the dialogue going in two areas. One, is the retail sale of marijuana something that this town wants? And we all talked to various of our constituencies and generally got a feel of where our constituencies stood on that issue. It was really something done in anticipation. I will give a lot of credit because, the committee started off with a model ordinance, similar to what you have seen in some of the other municipalities, because several municipalities have either taken steps to ban it outright and also some in terms of licensing. Now, we all did this with the anticipation that it could be the case that when various laws are actually put into place, the possibility that municipal ordinances would be set aside or superseded to either be reintroduced and readopted. That all being said, I don't think it's a bad thing to review the model ordinance and remind ourselves what we're going towards. At that time, what was determined was, one, that the general feeling was, if legal, that access should be available somewhere in the town of Morristown. I think working with VEACH and working with administration, we did develop sort of our own model ordinance that we might consider at the time, which actually not only zoned it in terms of specifying possible locations, but also actually, and I believe this was your idea, to actually treat it like liquor, make it a license, and on those licenses, put some predetermined conditions on the operation. I think the ordinance that was developed by administration and by council, I think is a very strong ordinance. One thing we did struggle with, we were in that council room with Jillian, not council, up in the mayor's conference room, with several maps trying to figure out where and how you could locate this. That did remain a problem. But I do tend to agree with the mayor. I don't think that there's any rush to do this, but I do think that as a subcommittee, we should stay apprised of what our alternatives are and maybe have something in place, or maybe even adopt something sooner than later, so that we don't get caught in the possible situation of, being caught off guard without having regulations in place when somebody might apply for a license or for a location or a zoning permit to have such a distribution center here in Morristown. I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Rob. All right, so I think the action item is there remains a standing council committee on this with the support of the administration, and we will continue that effort over the next year or so. Okay, the last new business item is board commission vacancies. Margot, can you just remind us what vacancies are available, are open, or will be open?
Okay. Wrong page. Okay, we have posted for one parking authority commission position. The incumbent has expressed interest in being reappointed, but we are accepting applications for that vacancy.
Just a question on that. Is it the town policy that board members have to live in the town of Morristown, or is that just a guideline?
I would defer to the town attorney on that. I believe that there are some boards that can accept members if they cannot identify enough members in town.
Council President, when it comes to the parking authority, there is no residency requirement.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And at this date, there are 3 vacancies coming up on the Zoning Board of Adjustment. There are 2 regular members and 1 alternate member. The 1 regular member has expressed interest in reappointment. That would leave the 2nd alternate for council's consideration to move into a regular position and shuffle that around as you would. But right now we're accepting applications for those 3 appointments. That was posted on November 5th, and I've established a deadline of December 11th to allow some time for council to review any incoming applications and make their decision before reorganization on January 5th.
And besides the 1 person who's expressed an interest in being reappointed, have you heard from the other 2?
No, not yet.
Okay. All right. So if you can, so you're going to post that?
It has been posted, sir.
If you can forward on the email or correspondence from the existing board of adjustment members, so we can consider that as sort of a sub application as well. That'd be helpful.
Absolutely.
Have we gotten any applicants, new applicants to any of these that you've heard from, Margot?
No, not yet, Councilwoman.
Okay.
So I encourage you to please reach out to your constituents.
Has there been any applicants for the parking authority?
There was 1.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing else, anyone else?
No, actually there is. I just didn't know where I wanted to address an issue that happened in my ward. I just didn't see where to do that, but I'd like to do that now if that's okay. Okay, so over the weekend, there was an allegation of a crime that may have happened in Ward 2. This suspicious incident is under investigation. I have full faith in the police department. I was assured that there is no danger to the community. Again, this incident is being investigated.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, I'd make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
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 Thank you all.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Yes.
Happy Thanksgiving for all.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Actually, aren't we meeting before Thanksgiving?
Next meeting's December 1st.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless you're inviting us
night.
over, Stefan, for Thanksgiving. I'm just saying.